This week on The Communicators, television executives Doug Herzog of MTV and Kevin Leddy of Time Warner Cable discuss their companies and developments in the television industry.
Communicators welcomes Doug Herzog. We're out here at the cable show in Chicago. Tell me about your job, first of all.
My job?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I have one of the best jobs in television. Certainly a perfect job for me. I get to oversee, 3 brands that I'm enormously passionate about. I would be a viewer of if I didn't work there, and I get to work with a group of tremendously talented and creative people, and and having 3 is fun for me because I'm sure I've got ADD, and I can move from one thing to the next quickly, and it's great fun. So I oversee all 3 businesses, and all the programming and marketing aspects and business aspects, and it's a lot of fun. I love managing the process and managing people, and most of all these great brands.
And we're sitting right across from your booth here. We're neighbors, C-SPAN and your brands, but tell people the 3 channels that you manage.
Well, there's Comedy Central, there is Spike TV, and there is TV Land.
And how do the demographics change for each of those?
Well, 3 distinct channels with 3 distinct brands and 3 distinct audiences. So Comedy Central is really targeted at generally young men, and Spike's targeted at men, so slightly older. So Comedy Central is more for guys, Spike TV is more for men, and TV Land's more for adults. So Comedy and Spike have a little sort of crossover, and they're both going for guys, and TV Land's more of a 50-50 split male-female.
And we should tell people that you are being honored by the cable industry today with their Vanguard Award for Programming, so congratulations for that.
Thank you very much.
You've been in the business for a long time now.
30 years? 30 years this year, yeah. I was just talking to my colleague about remembering the first show I ever went to when I was working for the cable news network, the then fledgling cable news network, and Ted Turner was working the booth.
We seem to be on the precipice, so you keep hearing again and again in the sessions, and then you walk the floor, of explosion in the merger of the internet and traditional television, whatever that is today. How do you hope to exploit that as all of these services integrate and also explode with speed?
Well, that's the question that's on everybody's mind, and that's the subject that we're all discussing every day endlessly. But I do know, and I'm pretty certain, that the answer is it all revolves around programming and original programming. So none of these platforms mean anything without programming and without content. So whether you're a cable operator or a satellite distributor or you're Netflix or you're Hulu or whoever you are, you're going to need content. And so the only thing that gets me to sleep at night is knowing that as long as we continue to create great, compelling content, ultimately we're going to be okay, because that's really what this is all about, and that's what people want, and they want more of it than ever, and they want it in as many different ways as possible, and they want it when they want it. How that all gets figured out, and then how we all make money doing that, I think we're going to get there, but again, the key is creating the content, and I have to agree with Sumner Redstone that content is king.
The choices available to people, I mean, you've built brands for 30 years in somewhat established ways, because the choices were a little bit narrower when we both got in the business, much narrower, but when you look at the amount of choice available and the multiple platforms, especially younger people are using, how do you perceive that you'll be able to establish new brands going forward with this multiplicity of choices?
Well, I think the established brands, are going to be paramount in helping us to establish new brands. So or sub brands, whereas so the broadcast networks have sort of almost turned into, I feel like, Barker channels at this point for their programming. People aren't necessarily showing up at 8 o'clock anymore to watch that particular show, but they will hear about it and they will ultimately get there. I feel like the Comedy Centrals of the world, the Spike TVs, the TV Lands, the MTVs, the ESPNs, the CNNs, whoever it is, we've still got the reach and the power to market in a way that really can't be challenged at this point.
So the loyalty of your established viewerships allows you to roll out
I think it gives you an advantage. By the way, that won't be the only way you can do it, and there will be those guys who do break out of the pack of millions, because the sort of barrier for entry on the internet is not very great. But then you got to find it. It's like panning for gold. Now there will be some things that break out over time. Something great will happen there and explode up, but it ain't going to be everybody. And then they've got a lot of competition once they do rise up in terms of a lot of the great established brands in the cable world, and the broadcast networks are still hanging around. There
are some growing pains at this point. I mean, there are intellectual property challenges, there are contract issues being fought out in the courts. Do you assume that we'll get past these growing pains, or they'll get more complex even as time goes on?
Well, I think we'll continue to move past them, on an issue by issue basis. But I also believe, it feels to me like every day you wake up and there's a new issue. There's a new platform for sure, which brings a new issue with it. So I feel like that's an ongoing, sort of evolution. It felt like there was a period over the last sort of, 15 years where we were just kind of in this place where everything was we understood where everything was going and where everything was going to be, and then at some point, the world exploded on us. And I think that's going to be going on for the next couple of years. It's going to be a lot of disruptions. But I think we'll get there. This is an industry with great leadership and a lot of smart people who are doing a lot of smart things. And to date, I feel like the right steps are being taken, and no one's running off and in a way that puts everything in jeopardy.
How does Comcast's purchase of NBC, a merger of the two, and them getting into the broadcast business and all the other channels that they own, how's that changed the competitive landscape for you?
In terms of how we approach them as distributors, which is what our relationship with them, that's, again, we're going to assume that, we will continue to have the kind of relationship we've had overall. We're, because we're a pure content company, and we're very comfortable being a pure content company, and that's what we want to be. We look at that as, okay, they're big with a lot of moving pieces. We're going to keep on doing what we're doing, and in that regard, we should be able to maintain the kind of relationship we've had with them traditionally, where we're a content provider and they're a distributor, and they might be looking at the world a little differently given the businesses they're now in, and we'll see how that sort of manifests itself over time. But in terms of how we view ourselves and view our relationship day to day, I'm not sure there's a great change of...
Thinking about access to their customers now that they have programming services that they are responsible for.
Again, if you continue to do what we've done historically, which is create great brands
that people want,
that people want, that just always is the key. It wins every day. Give the people what they want, and everything else be damned.
You made reference earlier to Netflix and Hulu. Someone said to me on the show floor, they think the cable industry has their head somewhat in the sand about the potential for growth of these so-called over-the-top services. What's your view about what their game plan might be and how it would affect you as a content provider?
Right now, we're just taking it one step at a time with them, and sort of very short, looking at everything sort of short term. We'll see where it goes, down the line. As a programmer, I'm more concerned with, are they going to be competing with me in terms of making an original program one day, original programming one day, competing with me on that level. That's something we are looking at and talk about quite a bit. In terms of, how we view them as a distributor, we, like I said, it's sort of a one day at a time kind of thing. We've got tremendous relationships in the satellite and cable community, and those are very important to us and a big part of our business. And where Netflix and Hulu end up, remains to be seen.
In the copyright area, how concerned are you about piracy, particularly on an international basis with your established brands, and what are you looking for from DOJ or from Washington in that regard?
Well, piracy is a great, a big issue for us at Viacom. Paramount Pictures has been a real leader in terms of how they're out there pursuing the people who infringe on their copyrights, and sort of internally at Viacom, they're really leading the charge. Look, it's a big issue, and it's been a little bit like you find the leak and you plug it up, and then all of a sudden another one springs up. But we're at it, we're diligent about it, and it's something that's got to be conquered and managed going forward, because making sure everybody gets paid for this content is, that's the business, and without it we don't have one.
Another aspect of getting paid for it is this whole concept of being able to track who's using your services on multiple platforms. What is your message to Nielsen about getting with the program, being able to understand actually where the eyeballs are?
Another big issue. Look, we want to be where the audience is, and the audience is clearly, beginning to, use and interact and view our content on various platforms in various different ways. And it's incumbent upon us and ultimately Nielsen to make sure that we can get credit for that. Again, because that's how we're going to keep this business healthy and vibrant and continue to invest in our programming so we can make more great content.
Just came from the opening session where Brian Roberts, the head of Comcast, just demonstrated lightning fast speeds of Xfinity and smart program announcements, scheduling announcements, and also the connection with Facebook and other social app platforms. What does that mean for you with regard to social media services and how they help you expand your brand?
That's incredibly exciting. We are across all our brands and across the company. We are great fans and users of social media, and we see it as an enormous tool in order to market what we're doing, to communicate with our audience, to have a back and forth dialogue with our audience, and whether it's a Paramount, Pictures feature. I'm sure you read a lot about Super 8 and the success they had in marketing that via Twitter. Or a show we launched last night, Happily Divorced, on TV Land, in which we utilized Facebook, Twitter, etc. Again, this is where the audience is. They are very much engaged with these processes, and we're there. We want to be there, and I think it's a great tool. First of all, I find it fascinating as a consumer, and from a business standpoint, it's got a lot of great opportunities. At Comedy Central, where we have a young guy audience, we have seen ourselves. As we market things, moving away from traditional, marketing, we're less now about billboards and print magazines, and more so online and social media, which is where that audience is, particularly young guys.
Right over your shoulder at your booth is a very large picture of Jon Stewart. Our network covered his...
He looms large over my shoulder at all times.
He'll be happy to hear that, I'm sure. Last summer, our network carried the Colbert Stewart rally on the Mall in Washington. We're getting into a presidential election year. Talk to me about your network's plans to be involved and active in the upcoming election.
Well, active to the point that we sort of it's something of great interest to John and Steve and their audiences. We have this semi-annual. Not semi-annual, I guess. What do you call it? It's every 2 years. Biannual? Biannual. Thank you. We have a biannual thing we call Indecision. Our next round of Indecision is coming up. That's what we call our coverage. And John will be out there. Stephen will be out there. They have become very important stops for a lot of people who are looking to send a message, despite the fact that we're a comedy channel, which is incredible enough. But they'll be right in the thick of it. But we don't we're not a news organization. We're there to make people laugh. We're there to take a look at the world and the process and ultimately make fun of it. And that's what they'll be doing. But we look forward to it. That's having an election year on Comedy Central for John and Stephen is our equivalent of an Olympic year. We get a lot of attention. More viewers flock to us because, like the Olympics, there's just more. Everybody's interested in the big race, and it's a good time for us.
Staying with that note, there's a new book coming out. Ben Shapiro has written. You are among the several programming executives featured where he makes the case that there are just not enough conservatives represented. Do you agree with that charge on his part? And are you concerned that a GOP House or the people that follow them might bring this up as an issue in the election year?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with him completely. That's a very specific view, and whether that becomes an issue in this election, it's hard for me to imagine with everything that's going on in the world that's where folks are going to focus, but only time will tell, and I certainly have been wrong before.
As we close here, since you're talking to C-SPAN, Tell me a bit about your concerns about Washington and how they might affect your business, or what messages you might have to Washington.
Oh gosh, I'm not sure I have anything I would specifically say to Washington, except that it's a it's a complicated era that we're moving into in terms of as we talked about, all the new platforms, all the disruptions, and all the issues facing us, and we've had a tremendous relationship over the past 30 years, and has helped this industry build itself up to the place where it is today. And we're not done yet, and we certainly look forward to their partnership and cooperation and support going forward, and taking this industry to the next level over the next 30 years.
Doug Herzog, congratulations again on your award, and thank you for spending time with Communicators.
Thank you.
We are on the floor of the 2011 Cable TV Convention in Chicago with Kevin Leddy, who's been in this business now for more than 30 years, is that right?
A little bit more, actually,
Yeah.
about 34.
Hard to get reminded of all the time going by, but
Yeah.
I wanted to start there because of your perspective about how this business has changed over the years. Give me your snapshot of where it is as a business right now.
It's a terrific business, certainly a terrific business for Time Warner Cable. We spun off from Time Warner about 2 years ago, and our stock price is up 200% since we spun off. Cash flow's up, revenue's up. Commercial business is going great. High-speed data business is going great. So it's a great time to be in cable.
Tell me about your specific job.
I have a lengthy title, which is Executive Vice President of Technology, Policy, and Product Management. And I work for the CTO of the company, Mike LaJoy. And my real day-to-day responsibilities are to help create a long-term technology strategy for the company that supports all the new products and services that we want to introduce over the next few years.
Time Warner made a lot of headlines this year when you announced your new app for iPad. Will you talk to me a little bit about what the goal of that is and where it is in its deployment?
The iPad app is part of a much broader goal. The goal of our video product strategy is 4 Ns, and you've heard other companies talk about the 4 Ns, but any content on any device, anytime, anywhere. And we've made great progress against that strategy over the last few years. One of the key enablers of the strategy is better navigation. And that better navigation can either come from improvements to our set-top box or using consumer electronics devices to navigate the content. So we're pursuing both. We're improving navigation on our set-tops by building a high-speed data pipe to those set-tops so that they can do functions accessed from the cloud. You can do search functions, find programming more easily, download better graphics, have a better visual experience on the set-top. But the other half of that strategy is to use the power of consumer electronics devices. So iPads have tremendous capabilities. They have big processors in them, a lot of graphics capability, a beautiful visual display. So customers can use an iPad to view our content, but more and more they're going to use iPads to navigate the content that's available to them. So we'll have a better guide available through the iPad. You'll be able to use your iPad as a remote control, and you'll be able to find what you want more easily.
When you use the word iPad, is that a generic term for tablets, or are you talking iPad specific?
We started with the iPad, but we will serve lots of other tablets. So we'll work with Samsung on their Galaxy tablets. We're working on the Android tablets. We'll expand to iPhones and Droid phones, and then we're also creating a video portal that'll be accessible through PCs.
The numbers that I have, which are just a couple weeks old, that since launch, which has not been that long ago, you've already got 360,000 people have signed up for the iPad app. Is that correct?
The downloads are now over 500,000.
500,000. Did that exceed your expectations?
Yes, it did. Now, some of those downloads, to be fair, are outside of our footprint. It's not always clear to customers
people want
whether
the
they're
service,
Time
but
Warner
they can't
Cable,
get it.
whether they're Time Warner Cable customers or not. But a very large percentage, let's put it this way, a very large percentage of the people who have iPads in our footprint have downloaded the application, and they're using it more and more all the time.
And how many channels are available on it?
And we've only got 80 channels on it today. We don't have the local broadcast channels available yet, and we don't have a lot of sports programming. So as we add more sports and local broadcasters, we expect the usage to go up quite a bit.
And we should be fair, you're our second largest affiliate for C-SPAN, and tell people that C-SPAN services are available on this application as well. But it's not been without launch bumps. For example, a lawsuit from Viacom, who didn't want it, and Disney, I believe, has also raised concerns about having its products streamed under your current contract negotiations. Your job involves a nexus of policy and technology. Are you concerned about these initial issues on content providers' part?
No, I can't really speak very much about that issue because we're in the lawsuit, but we believe we have the rights to stream content on a customer's premises.
And so
it acts pretty much like an additional outlet, any other screen in the house.
Over time, you expect that the industry will come to some sort of resolution about these issues?
I think you're right, Susan, it will.
Now, one of the things people are talking about here is monetizing this in a way that you can capture the number of people using the services for advertising purposes. How do you see that progressing?
I think we need to report the viewership, so we're working with Nielsen for an application that would report that viewership so that the networks can get credit for it and monetize it through advertising. So that's an important part of getting on to all these other devices.
Is it a technological solution from Nielsen? How do you see that being addressed?
I'm not sure, but I think the most straightforward way to do it is to have Nielsen download an application to the iPad that monitors that usage.
Your boss, Glenn Britt, has been quoted, and he's been talking here about the fact that broadband is going to be the major business for Time Warner in the years ahead, that it, in fact, you can even see yourself beginning to serve broadband-only customers in a more frequent basis. Can you talk to us about the strategy with regard to that and how much the work you're doing falls into that strategy?
I think video is still the foundation of our business, so we need to continue to improve video. It's the main reason most of our customers have our services in their home. So we will do everything we can to remain very competitive on our video offerings. But there are some customers, for example, DirecTV and EchoStar customers, that get their video from somebody else and use our high-speed data as their internet access. So we'll enable that too. Out of our 14.5 million customer relationships today, 2 million customers only take only take high-speed data from us already.
Let me go back to your use of the tablet as a better navigation tool. You did a panel session here where one of the themes was smart navigation. Can you talk, intelligent navigation, can you talk to me a little bit more about that concept and how it progresses?
Yeah, a lot of it comes back to something I was talking about a minute ago, which is using cloud-based computing to enhance navigation. We've always been constrained in our navigators by the capabilities of the set-top box, which have good processors in them, but relatively limited graphics capabilities. But if we can start to access servers at our head ends, then we can do much more intelligent navigation. We can give customers a lot more information about the programming that they're viewing. We can start to do recommendation engines similar to what you see from Amazon and other online providers who are recommending books to you. If you want a recommendation engine to recommend programming to you, we'll enable that. You'll also get a lot better graphics about the programming. So you'll see DVD box art, you'll see some scenes from the movie. It'll be much more intelligent than what you've got today on a set-top.
Now, a lot of that intelligence comes from the use of cookies or being able to track people's preferences. That gets into the whole arena of privacy. And people worried about how much of their own preferences are being stored. How are you approaching that with regard to providing good services while customers are more and more concerned about privacy of their information?
I think, the cable industry is extremely careful about privacy. Part of the regulations that govern our industry have talked about privacy for years, so we've always been very, very careful about it. If we provide a recommendation engine for customers, it'll be on an opt-in basis.
Do you foresee the day that there will be no longer set-top boxes in people's homes?
Yes, so that's the other half of what we're demonstrating here at the show this week. We have our services streaming directly to a Samsung television and a Sony television. If you get over into the cable net area, the television manufacturers are creating what they call connected TVs or smart TVs. In the case of Samsung, they have browsers in them, and similar to the iPad, we can create applications with our navigator to download to those televisions. So today we're streaming 80 channels in our demonstration. The same 80 channels that are going to the iPad are also going to the Samsung television. That Samsung television can also access the content that's stored on the DVRs in a customer's home, so you don't need a set-top box on that TV. And the Sony television is accessing our video on demand directly through the network too, without a set-top box.
Where is all of that integration and innovation originating? Is it the consumer electronics manufacturers? Is it some working group that brings all of the parties together? Can you tell me about how it's being developed?
We're both in very competitive industries, so trying to work out those partnerships in large forums is difficult, but individually we can partner with them and work these things out. So we're working with Sony directly and Samsung directly, but I can't imagine that they would want to sit down together and work these things out. They compete very
Time Warner Cable is going, directly to these manufacturers with these innovations.
That's right, and they're in our laboratories out in Denver working with our engineers.
But you already explained about the iPad app, about confusion on the part of customers for things that were available only in your service area, people wanting them beyond the boundaries of the service area. How does this play forward as individual companies such as yourself are developing new applications that aren't widely available?
I think you're going to see lots of different applications on these televisions, and not all of them will be available to all customers in all parts of the country. But we can, just as we do with the iPad, we can download an application to the Samsung televisions that are in our footprint. So I think it'll be relatively clear to customers.
How much are you keeping an eye on what other cable operators are developing in the area of new products and saying, hey, I'd like to do that too? I'm thinking, for example, as I ask this question, of Comcast's partnership announcement with Skype for video telephone calls over the television. Are you looking around for ideas that you can then incorporate into your own company?
Absolutely, all the time. We'll take any ideas from anybody, including our competitors and other cable companies. So I really like the Skype application that Comcast is going to be doing, and we're meeting with Comcast and Skype as well to see if we can do it too.
Social media, another area that's really been burgeoning. Talk to me about how you see social media applications being deployed in your service areas and enhancing your business.
I think it's another part of smart navigation, more intelligent navigation. You can either pick programming better yourself based on all the additional information we're going to give you, or there can be these recommendation engines that we talked about, or you can get recommendations from third parties. We should have access to Rotten Tomatoes, for example, on the screen so that you can see nationally what other people have thought about a movie or a show. The fourth way would be to get opinions of your friends. So having Facebook available on screen and letting teenagers or people in general talk about the programming they're watching while they're watching it, I think will be very popular. Now, so the integration of social networking makes a lot of sense for navigation.
One of the things that's happening then, if people are watching TV, using applications, and possibly doing social media while they're consuming your product, all of this creates additional demand on your broadband, on the pipe. And at this program, we hear people have been talking about the multitasking that's going on, which means that that a single home that might have consumed 8 hours of television in the past, you now have to multiply that number because of all the additional devices they're deploying.
Yeah.
Broadband capacity has been a continual issue for this industry. Time Warner has done some experimentation with metering, and I just came from a luncheon where John Leibovitz of the FTC said he was surprised that metering hadn't caught on more, that heavy users, in fact, shouldn't pay a little more. What has Time Warner's experiments been with that, and what do you think about this as a larger scale deployment?
Well, we don't have any plans to roll out consumption-based billing at this time, but I think John's points were very good. Those who use less should pay less. I think it would be great if we could lower prices, or at least not take prices up as fast for people who use a lot less. So we're delighted that people are using more. Growth of internet traffic is skyrocketing, particularly peak growth during prime time, which is 8 to 10 o'clock at night. It is a challenge to build enough capacity to keep up with all of that growth, but it's terrific for us. People are getting more and more value out of their high-speed data connections, and that's exactly what we want.
So, in the area where your job intersects with Washington, what would your message be to Washington regulators or to the Congress about what to do to encourage this growth, or not to stand in the way of it?
I think not to stand in the way of it is just the way to put it. I meet with regulators fairly often, and we talk about things like the All-Vid initiative. I don't know whether your viewers know anything about that, but
can you tell us a little bit about
network neutrality.
Yeah.
And they ask how I would write the regulations, and I have to say I have no idea how to write those regulations. Things are moving so fast. I'm sure that whatever we write today will be wrong a year or two from now. So I think the market is as dynamic as it can possibly be right now. There are a lot of checks and balances in the marketplace, and I don't think regulators should try to pick winners and losers or the right technologies.
So the message is hands off for now, let this shake out a bit and see where the market goes?
Yes, and certainly don't put prophylactic regulation in place. You know, there aren't problems right now, so why would you try to anticipate problems and put regulations in place?
We're just about out of time, but as we're sitting here and all this traffic is going by on day 2, tell me what you've seen when you've walked around the floor and what's interested you the most, other than your own services.
I think it's interesting to see what the other cable operators are doing over in CableNet. There are lots of new streaming technologies, which is an important thing for us. How to get video over the internet, or using internet technologies, how are we going to deliver video? Those technologies are improving very rapidly, which is a good thing for somebody who worries about network capacity. And then I'm encouraged by these other devices that are now capable enough to receive our video services.
Is it possible to see where this business will be in 5 years?
I'm not that good. But I can't wait to see it. It's fun to watch it roll out.
Well, you won't even be at your 40th anniversary in 5 years, but
right.
Look forward to talking to you then about seeing how this all plays out. Thanks, Kevin Leddy, for your time.
Thanks, Susan.
Look for more interviews from The Cable Show and other Communicators programs in our video library at cspan.org.